Oh, wait, did it not start? Oh, you know what? My intro song didn't play. I forgot to add my intro song back in. So oops, we're live right now. Sorry about that.
Mhm.
Sorry for everybody that's just sitting here watching in uncomfortable silence as I post this. I forgot to add my intro song back in. I made a video yesterday and took it out, and now I need to put it back in.
It's
So
all good. It's all good. This is the not terrorist panel. The not antifa panel. We're going to talk about fascism and anti-fascism, the state of this crazy state today. And as a crazy person, I could say that. And the future of our movement. Hey, so excited everyone is here. We got a variety of perspectives. I'm going to now send it back to our big host, Machine Pun Kelly, who's going to, I think, hopefully give us each a little chance in the beginning to go around, introduce ourselves and all that stuff. So we make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. And throughout the next hour, I will do my best to make sure that no one is overpowering the conversation, controlling the conversation, that kind of thing.
So, well, welcome everybody. Sorry about the confusing start, and thanks to Awkward for helping me fill that little goopy hole that I made. So we're joined today with Jay Walker. That is his real name, and that's why he puts the W in the middle. Nathan Common Lamb. He is a professor at where? At what college?
University of New Brunswick in Canada.
Ah, wow. You speak pretty good English for a foreigner. And then we've got Caitlin. Caitlin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Green. I'm a linguist. I'm associate editor at Liberal Currents and co-host of the Half the Answer podcast.
And Arturo?
Yeah, hi. I run the Decolonized Journalism newsletter on Substack. I also editor-in-chief at The Antagonist magazine, both online and on Substack. And I'm also co-leader at the Writers and Editors of Color Collective with Allison.
Wow. Oh, the Allison that's on the stage right now?
Yeah.
Hi, Allison. So, Dr. Allison, I think your mic's not working. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Who hasn't gone yet while
Well,
Dr. Welch is working on this? Oh, you might be good now.
I think you're good.
That sounds good.
Say
Can you
something.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, well, nice to meet everyone. My name is Dr. Alice Wiltz. I'm co-founder of Writers and Editors of Color. I'm also editor at Momentum magazine, Medium, and I have another magazine, Cultured, for activists that are around the globe and kind of share what they're doing and stay in touch with each other. So I love to write. I'm working with Arturo.
And what is your PhD in?
Psychology. So my dissertation was pertaining to attitude related to race-based affirmative action policies. And yeah, very interesting topic at the time because it became illegal as I was studying it.
There's something interesting that we already have scheduled that I think you might have some input on. But first, we're going to go to Nathan and bring up this whole Donald Trump. There was like this Kool-Aid festival in Israel where everybody sat there and applauded what they were calling this peace plan, which is not there is a peace plan, but only the ceasefire portion of it has been agreed upon. So they haven't agreed upon a peace plan. Share with us your thoughts on what actually that is, what it actually means, and what it doesn't mean.
Sure. Well, to contextualize that, I think that we just, hopefully everyone at this point is very well aware of the fact that Israel has been committing genocide in Gaza for at least 2 years. That is not my opinion. That is the expert opinion of the International Association of Genocide Scholars, almost every human rights organization in the world, the United Nations, etc. This has really been one of the great atrocities of our time, and it has been supported actively by most countries in the global north, specifically the United States, my own country, Canada, in Europe, the United Kingdom, Germany, etc. Right. So this has been, a truly horrific occurrence, and now what we're confronted with is the United States fascist leader-in-chief, Donald Trump, has anointed himself the savior for 3,000 years of history in the Middle East, explicitly saying that he has resolved this history himself. And so, there's a lot of, there are a lot of ways in which we could, I think, critique the so-called peace plan, but most importantly, what we have right now is a ostensible ceasefire, right? And this is something that I think has been agreed upon by Hamas and Israel, and yet we have still seen Israel murdering people in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Lebanon, since the ceasefire has been agreed to. So I would put ceasefire, even ceasefire, in scare quotes right now in terms of what this really means. What we have seen explicitly is an exchange of prisoners, right? And again, I'd be careful with the language we use. Mainstream media wants us to say that those held by Hamas were hostages and those held by Israel are detainees, which implies somehow that Palestinians imprisoned by the Israeli state, children among them, are criminals who are guilty of some kind of crime and deserve to have been imprisoned, and those who were taken by Hamas otherwise, right, are there innocents, civilians who don't deserve that. And so my point is, we should be understanding these to be commensurate positions, right, that both are imprisoned parties, but within an asymmetrical conflict, right, in which Israel is the colonial power, and Hamas is a group of resistance fighters against that colonial power. So what we've seen is a prisoner exchange. That's happened. That's real. It occurred. What that also means is that Hamas no longer has any leverage against Israel. So there's a real question how long this so-called ceasefire is going to last, given that many of Israel's leaders have made genocidal claims in the last 2 years. This is why it has been called genocide, is because these leaders have explicitly said they want to commit ethnic cleansing. They want to take Gaza for themselves, for their own development. We now see, right, that the Tony Blair, Trump, et cetera, have their own development plans for Gaza. And that really requires ethnic cleansing. So I am deeply skeptical of this as a peace plan. I'm very concerned about it as a ceasefire. And I would just say that Israel continues to control 50% of Gaza right now. Okay, they have not withdrawn beyond about 50%. And so I don't see a clear pathway to any kind of humane resolution here, if there was even a humane resolution possible beyond decolonization in a very profound sense. But let me just start with that. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on the subject, but just to try to sort of lay out how I see the situation.
One thing that I was reading is that some Arab nations are calling, they're calling out what they're calling poison pills in this peace plan that even Netanyahu insisted on being in there. One of them being IDF being able to go in there and monitor Hamas as they going in there and monitoring Hamas as they destroy the tunnels and all of their weapons and everything, which would also take any ability to ever fight back, and that they have not agreed to and never will agree to. And the other thing is, this board of governors with our board of governors, much going on. Our board, the board of governors that's governed by Donald Trump as the chair, and then Tony Blair as like second. And like if you know the history of what has happened there between ever since the last 100 years, not just the last 50 years or whatever, but going back to even 1850, there's been this gradual incursion of Jewish people slowly taking over the entire area. And the big facilitators of that have been England and the US. So asking those two countries in particular to head up this panel and be in charge of Gaza's passage into statehood is pretty insulting to them. And I think that there's some people that are saying, well, look, they're never going to accept this, and they know they're never going to accept this. So this is just Israel's way of saying, look, we gave them the chance, we made this agreement, they broke the agreement, and now that's going to justify our further genociding of them. Do you have any thoughts on that? And also, and then after that, if anybody else wants to discuss this topic in general.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that I would say, my own state, Canada, has recently acknowledged so-called Palestinian statehood, but the conditions of that, right, are what you described, demilitarization. And it's a remarkable claim to make, to say that a state that literally sits next to probably the single most dangerous state in the world, right, that they should not be allowed to defend themselves. I mean, that's not a condition that any state in the world operates under. It's simply an unsustainable state of affairs. And so, as you pointed out, if you want to call it a poison pill, I mean, it's like designed to be a completely impossible, unsustainable dynamic. And I think you pointed to this history, and just one comment I would make about that is I appreciate that you pointed that out. We need to understand Israel through the framework of colonialism and settler colonialism, okay? And partly why I say that is like where I sit in Canada, we do land acknowledgements, right? Before essentially everything that happens. Our own government, who has the power to cede the land, will start their own government sessions by saying that we're on unceded land, which is like deeply insulting, of course, but also shows how significant the language, the discourse of decolonization actually is in this moment in many countries in the global north, right? So on the one hand, we have that logic. Like I'm operating in a university space and so forth, where that logic pervades everything. This notion that decolonization is a legitimate and necessary position. Well, Israel is the only country in the world who actively refers to themselves as settlers right now. Okay, they're like actively engaged in a settler colonial project where they call themselves settlers publicly. We know that. They refer to themselves as settlers because they are settlers. They're proud to be settlers. And yet the same state that is telling us that they're making all these statements. We have a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in Canada, happened recently. But we're providing military support for the settler colonial project of Israel, which is ongoing right now.
Does anybody else want to weigh in on this topic? Or
I'll just add in just a little bit about this sort of governing board or whatever they're calling it with Tony Blair and Donald Trump. One of the most interesting things about it is that there are no Palestinians on it, and that's sort of the definition of colonialism, where the invading power is the one that's making all the rules and all the decisions, and the people of the land have absolutely no say. And when we talk about Israel, it's the modern state of Israel, it was a sort of, Zionism was this thing that even like the most Orthodox Jewish communities sort of like eschewed. They saw it as sort of biblical prophecy, for years and years and years and years and years before the outrages and the horrors of the Holocaust. And then everyone just sort of flipped out of guilt, all of the Western powers out of guilt, and, decided that to sort of expiate their guilt for World War II, let's go ahead and steal this land from these people under the British Palestine Mandate and give it to the Jewish people in expiation for the sins of the Holocaust. And you don't undo a horrible ethnic cleansing campaign with another horrible ethnic cleansing campaign. And so, everything since then has been the fruit of this poisonous tree. And the notion that somehow, this agreement, this peace plan, quote unquote, that Trump and Netanyahu and the Arab states have just agreed upon is going to somehow magically end the last 77 years of horror that's been inflicted on the Palestinian people is a fantasy, but it's a useful fantasy in that sort of Western colonial way of doing things, of putting up a bright, pretty picture to say that, oh, everything is fine now, when anyone with any tiny basis in logic knows that it's far more likely that it's going to come undone and descend into violence again.
Yeah, this is why I've never really been a proponent of the two-state solution, because one state would have to demilitarize, under Israel's rules, and that's just not sustainable. Like you said earlier, there's not a nation state out there that would agree to be demilitarized when you have such a violent neighbor. So yeah, these are like really deep topics that you can really cover a lot over the whole conflict because of its one-sidedness and just the nature of how it's portrayed.
And I think most people don't really understand it's not a religious thing. I think that's the biggest thing that people miss, is that it's not a for 2,000 years, Jews and Arabs lived together peacefully. Well, for about 1,900 years, and even before there were Muslims. Under the Ottoman Empire, they had something called the people of the book. And the people of the book were Muslims, Christians, and Jews. And while Jews and Christians didn't have equal rights with Muslims, they still had rights, and they kind of had an autonomous rule as long as they stayed under Ottoman rule and stuff like that. And so there wasn't a lot. The Jews had a lot more problems living with Christians in Europe than they did with Arabs and Muslims in the Middle East. So I think a lot of people think it's about that, but it's actually about land. It's about the gradual removal from their land and stuff. So anyway, let's move on to the next topic. So next up, we're going to go to Jay. And I don't know, I put quotes around identity politics here because I think that identity politics has become this kind of thing, it's a bad thing. And it's I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that gay people fighting for gay rights is fine. I think trans people fighting for trans rights is fine. And I think non-trans people fighting for trans rights is fine. I don't understand what's wrong with identity politics, but you want to, you didn't use the words identity politics, but you wanted to talk about gay people, or this kind of retreat from some of the Democrats from things like gay rights and trans rights, if I understand you correctly. Is that what you wanted to?
Well, yeah. And more broadly, all civil rights, all, the rights of all marginalized and oppressed people, Black people, brown people, immigrants, queer people, trans people. What we've seen is sort of the demonization of the fight for civil rights. That's what we've seen coming out of the Trump administration. That's what was, basically the main thrust of Project 2025. And also in it's weird to consider women marginalized in the sense that women are half of the population, cisgender women are half the population, but I include women in that as well. That Project 2025 is just an attack on the civil rights of everyone who is not a straight, white, Christian, rich man, cisgender man. And what we've seen, as the right wings, as the MAGA, as the fascist weaponization of language, has progressed over the past several years, even before Trump got in, the sort of demonization of the term woke, the demonization of the concept of DEI, the pretense that that a college course on law is somehow being taught in grade school. All of that has been in service of this attempt at making any aspect of the broad struggle in this country for equal rights, for civil rights across the board, suspect. And when you look at the effect that that's had, in real time over the course of the last 9 months, you see this outsized representation of Black and brown people among the people who've been laid off from the federal government, because for decades and decades, getting a good job in the federal government has been a ticket, an entree into the middle class, into a sustainable life for a lot of Black and brown people. Because even if you lived in Mississippi or Alabama or wherever, where the local and the state and the state governments managed to do anything and everything they could do to constrict your ability to thrive, you could get a job with the federal government, because the federal government passed these laws, passed all these civil rights laws in the 60s, and made sure that discrimination against minorities, particularly in this case, Black and brown people particularly, was verboten. And as time has gone on, that has expanded to include queer people and trans people. And so, the federal government was kind of the stopgap for this sort of insidious culture of bigotry that has always been a part of the American political and social landscape. And now, under Trump, under this, MAGA fascism, that's going away. And so we've seen, recently the sort of huge increase in Black women, like 300,000 Black women that have joined the unemployment rolls. And that's the way that's trickling down throughout society. So I think we've had this situation where our media is ignoring that. They are, as they always do, adopting the linguistics of the far right, because the far right is really, really effective at communicating in ways that the left has never been effective at communicating. And so, so we end up ceding the ground, the language, the discourse, the terms of the discourse, and the terms of engagement to the far right, and the media just plays right along with it. And so we're not seeing the white supremacy of this administration being called out. We are not seeing the just abject anti-LGBTQ animus of this administration being called out in the mainstream media. We're not seeing the misogyny of this administration being called out in the mainstream media. And it's very, very worrying. And now we've got Barry Weiss taking over CBS News.
So, Allison, you apparently know what you're talking about here.
Yeah, this is definitely my cup of tea in terms of top. I wanted to say, when it comes to identity politics, Black people have never had the privilege to decide when to not focus on their identity, because they're the ones that are actually subjected to discrimination. So, like, this morning I was working on an article and I was pulling up some stats, and Black people are 7.5 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder, 8 times more likely to be falsely convicted of sexual assault, and 19 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of drug use. And as everyone knows, we're 3 times more likely to be killed by the police. So when you look at that big picture from a quantitative perspective, we've never had the privilege to just say, oh, well, it's a convenient time to focus on identity. It's not. So it's like, if anything, that's like a privileged perspective. We are these different identities, whether someone's Black or gay or all these different intersecting identities. This is who they are. And we're just trying to navigate life and being treated with dignity and respect. And we don't have an administration that respects that. And of course, people that study history would tell you that we've never really had a great administration to successfully do all of that. In fact, when you look at what modern day civil rights leaders are saying, is that we need another civil rights era. We haven't completed the work of the Reconstruction era after the Civil War because it was interrupted by Jim Crow. And while civil rights may have made discrimination technically illegal, what those stats that I provided show is that racism has persisted. So that means we need to take action, right? But we have a time in which they're trying to ban affirmative action, ban diversity programs, all under the premise that they think that Black people and other people of color and other marginalized groups are not fully equal and do not deserve that. That's why they say instead of DEI being diversity, equity, inclusion, their nickname for it is didn't earn it, right? And we see that activists, far right activists like Charlie Kirk, who talked about Ketanji Brown Jackson, he was pretty much saying that a lot of Black women in power don't deserve those positions of power. He said that we do not have the brain processing power, right?
Yeah.
And so this comes from a very deep-rooted racist stereotype that suggests that white people are more intelligent. And so it's all rooted in white supremacy. So we can't really escape identity politics until we confront the fact that there are vast racial and other types of inequalities in this country.
Caitlin?
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to bring some linguistics in because this is absolutely right. And part of it is about taking a word and making it like cringe, basically, whenever somebody else starts to do the thing that you don't like, which is to name what you're doing, right? So if you're on the right, you take a word like woke, you take a word like politically correct if it's the 90s, you take a word like identity politics, and you say, actually, that's terrible. That's bad thinking. You can even make it like sort of a logical argument to say like, oh, you're not thinking correctly. You're not being logical. You're just being emotional, right? By doing identity politics, it's knee jerk. It's instinctual instead of like logical, right? The other thing is I like to use social positioning theory as like my way of thinking about how that discourse works, which is to say that if I accuse you of doing identity politics, then I've taken advantage of the dualistic thinking that we apply to like opposition. And I say that if I accuse you of doing identity politics, you can never get away with identifying what I'm doing as white identity politics, which is what the right is engaged in, right? Which it's white identity politics. It's saying we have to protect our white way of life. We have to protect our white children from the incursion of other ways of thinking and other types of people.
Like, especially when they say real Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hate that expression.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is like being a white farmer in Nebraska, how does that make you any more real of an American than if you're a Black person from South Side of Chicago? Like, that is just as much a part of America, and you're just as American. And you're like, oh, and then they'll be talking about their culture, like the culture on the South Side of Chicago is different and less American than the mid-American culture and the corn farms in, Nebraska. That just irks me to know.
Yeah, you have to be a white rural American to be a real American, right? And
but
then I've been watching
why that
this.
is.
Oh,
Like the reason why, like, white people are treated as the default citizen. That's why Toni Morrison said, white means American, everyone else has to hyphenate. So it's like, yeah, white people are treated as the default for a reason, because ultimately white land owning men were the first to ever even have rights to vote, and everyone else had to fight and scrap for it and fight to keep it. So I just wanted to say that like white people it's not a coincidence. They're treated as the default because this country is rooted in them enslaving others, displacing indigenous people from their land. And so when it's built off of that, well, it's like, it's no wonder white people are the default citizen. They've erased everyone else's right to express different cultures.
And every system that's been developed, to inform what is and what isn't American culture has been built around exactly that. The way our educational system, from primary straight through, has been built to convey that. And so it's not surprising that a lot of white people who come from extraordinarily white areas, who don't have much contact with people from other backgrounds, operate under that same assumption with impunity, because that is the way that every structure has been built.
Yeah, I don't know who also told the right that they should do this, but they're really into it. It was like Chris Rufo or James Lindsay or like Jordan Peterson or somebody told them that like if you don't like it when somebody is telling you something that's wrong, that like something bad that's happening, just tell them that they're using the oppressor oppressed framework, because then that's like shorthand for saying, oh, they're not thinking logically, they're just doing like CRT, and that's like obviously dumb. Nobody likes CRT. So I've been watching this like overgeneralization. So somebody can be like, oh, X politician broke the law or like did fraud. And somebody in the comments is going to go, oh, I can't believe you're falling into the oppressed oppressor framework. It's like, I don't know what you mean by that anymore. Like it's lost meaning.
Yeah.
And it's so like one of the most ridiculous things is not exactly the same thing, but yesterday somebody asked Mike Johnson why he hadn't seated the representative from Arizona. And he's like, oh, that's just a partisan talking point. Like,
Yeah.
No, bro, it's your job.
An elected congresswoman to be seated is partisan, but not seating her isn't partisan. Like, it's just insane.
They did this during the Reconstruction era. There was a black man, the last black governor of Louisiana, PBS Pinchback. He was elected to be governor, and then he won a Senate seat, and they refused to seat him. So a lot of the things that are happening now, if you go back and look at the Reconstruction era, then you will actually understand their entire plan and exactly how, like, the steps in which they plan to take. Not acknowledging the wins of the political opponents was partly how Jim Crow came in. If we're going to stop Jim Crow, we're going to actually have to understand that, like, refusing to seat them, that's exactly out of the Jim Crow playbook. And for those who don't know, it was actually the former Confederates founded the Ku Klux Klan. So there's like a direct political movement that you can trace back from the Confederacy into the MAGA movement now.
Well, and let's not in that situation with is not so so distant. I'm sure some of you remember the recent case of like a small city, small town in either Alabama or Mississippi. I just conflate those two states. That was a majority black town, elected a black mayor for the first time ever because white elites, white rich people sort of held incredible control over this town and the elections, allowing people to vote. They finally, the majority black population finally elected a black mayor, and they literally, this was just like 3-4 years ago or something, 2 years ago, and they locked him out of City Hall and refused to allow him to take his office. And that took a couple of years before he was finally able to take office after, I think, being elected again. So, you know, this isn't in the distant mists of history in the 19th century. This is literally happening right now in at least one former Confederate state.
Nathan?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, I really want to, go back and underline what Allison was saying. You could go and read your W.E.B. Du Bois, Black Reconstruction. I mean, it's just a map to our moment, precisely for the reasons that Allison was saying. But the other thing I wanted to sort of just to jump in on the conversation we were having about the way in which language is being deployed, right? And the way in which we have a kind of rhetoric from the right. I do think it's so important. Like everything you're all saying is objectively correct. I think it's so important though to remember they might even agree that what you're saying is objectively correct because they don't care about logic or being right. It has nothing to do with, none of this has anything to do with that. Like the best, you learn this when
Chris
you're
Rufo
involved.
tweets it every day.
Thank you. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's it. It's like you learn this when you're in a union, right? Like if you're in a union, stuff happens at the bargaining table. Like there's arguments that you pass your offers back and forth and you debate. Who has more power? Can you go on a labor stoppage and force the employer to give you what you want? Do you not have that power? That's actually what's going on. But like the rhetorical level, right? It's just subterfuge. It confuses you and makes you think that something else is happening that isn't happening. So right now, like the right has been unbelievably effective at advancing its policy agenda through organizing over decades. And that organizing has been fueled by billions of dollars, which is very helpful when you're organizing to have billions of dollars behind it. And unfortunately, we do not have a left that is, I'm not here to chase it. I'm not trying to chase anyone here. This isn't me. Like I'm part of that. Like I'm failing just as much as anyone else, but we have not collectively succeeded in a counterweight, right? Like, and that's really the problem with this moment is we have neoliberalism has completely failed to address the needs of human beings in the United States and elsewhere around the world, right? So we have this project that is producing privation, immiseration, and then we have, a Democratic Party that sometimes stands up and says, like, you should be happy, right? We have a low unemployment rate and we have a high GDP and everyone should be thrilled. And you know what? Fascism is more compelling than that. That's the truth about this moment. Fascism has been more compelling because fascism has said, you do have a problem. And people do have a problem. They have a problem. They can't afford to live. That's a problem.
Pretty big problem.
Yeah.
What we need is a left alternative, right? They're not giving us they're giving us fake answers to that problem. They're saying that trans people and immigrants are the problem. It's a lie. It's just a lie. That's fascism.
That's
it's a lie.
scapegoating, yeah.
It's scapegoating. But we haven't been able to successfully, as like a kind of larger scale electoral or popular project, say, no, like we need a real left socialist or otherwise alternative that satisfies people's needs in a very robust way and actually challenges racial capitalism, again, structurally. That's going to satisfy people. That's going to solve their problems. That's going to defeat the right meaningfully. But unfortunately, the right is now, like, by seizing power in the way they have, it's scary for a lot of reasons. I mean, what people are experiencing day to day is terrifying, and it's horrifying to watch it from Canada. But it's hard to know what to do against that now that the right has that power.
Well, and you hit one of the nails on the head, which is by bringing up capitalism, and that's really at the root of it all, isn't it? Because you have billionaires upon billionaires upon billionaires, multiple billionaires feeding all of this money, all of this lucre into this agenda on the right, and what do we have on the left? Like, what do we have to combat? I mean, it is asymmetrical warfare on that particular financial and economic level, because the left, is as much as, under Clinton and whatever, they cozied up to the Wall Streeters and all that stuff, the sort of new Democrat nonsense. They never managed to marshal the riches behind those people to actually pursue the Democratic agenda. Instead, what they did is they pulled the Democratic agenda over to make it suit the needs of the moneyed interests, and just sort of kicked the general public to the side. And we see that again and again and again. It's a cycle that continually repeats. It's why we see we've got to reach those straight white poor and working class men that are voting MAGA, and we'll go ahead and throw the trans people and abortion rights and healthcare and black people being able to be employed. We'll throw all of y'all under the bus so that we can get maybe 10% of those racist young white guys to maybe vote Democrat. I mean, it's mind-boggling how inane and unproductive it is.
I think this is a great segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, because I think there is you see 24% approval rating for the Democratic Party, and I think some Republicans want to take that and mean the other 76% are Republicans now. And it's like, no. I'm sorry. 50% of the country right now is pissed off at both parties. And I think that we're going to see that tomorrow in a very visceral way, like a very, very visible, not tomorrow, on Saturday, in a very, very visible way. So first of all, is everybody going to be doing No Kings on Saturday? I think that this is a movement born of the moment that we're tired, again and again, like gun control and abortion and abortion rights and, all of these things. You get like 75% of Americans agree on things that can't get past legislation. And a Supreme Court that represents like 18% of the country. And it's 2/3 of the Supreme Court, and only one representative, or one of the 6 Supreme Court justices, was actually nominated by a president that won the election in his first term, like, or won the popular vote in his first term. It's insane how much of a grip a small minority of American ideology has on our entire system. And, you know, like some of you have mentioned, the Democrats have not done enough to fight back. Chuck Schumer's about as useful as like a fart. There is absolutely no resistance coming from the Democrats outside of, you know, like AOC and Jasmine Crockett and, you know, and, you know, if you want to include Bernie Sanders in there. Anyway, I feel like the No Kings protest, they're trying to label this as you hate America. No, I'm protesting because I love America. You hate America. And you hate America if you're upset that I am protesting. Because that's like the most fundamental American right there is. And so we're going to, I'm going to hand it off to you, Arturo. I know you've got some thoughts on this.
Yeah, you know, everything from the identity politics to what you're talking about right now, you can draw a straight line back to what Allison said, the Reconstruction era, Jim Crow, the KKK, you know, even the language use, you know, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, everything was communism to the KKK, right? Civil rights, desegregation, busing, all of that was communism. It had nothing to do with communism, but it was to them. You know, the way, you know, not seating elected representatives, not allowing a mayor to take office, all of that straight line back to Reconstruction. And you know, I draw these lines all the time in my work. And you know, modern white Christian nationalism, which is what's operating in the White House right now, is the modern day Ku Klux Klan. I call them clean cut Klansmen with 3 Ks for a reason, because they're not wearing hoods anymore. They're wearing suit and ties. They're in the highest offices in the land. They've been forced into our faces in the Supreme Court, in federal courts, in local and state courts, in our police departments, police chiefs, you know, lawyers, doctors, everywhere, you name it, they're everywhere. They're clean-cut Klansmen. You know, discrimination and racism is everywhere you go. You know, I benefit from white privilege, for example, right? Because I'm a white Cuban. But the minute a cop sees my driver's license and sees Dominguez, right? Or if they run my license plates, all of a sudden I'm being treated like, you can go to Fort Bend County here where I can't even remember, he's a lawmaker now, was the former sheriff there, was racially profiling Latinos. It didn't matter if you were black, white, yellow, Latino. If they ran your license plate, you were Latino, you were getting pulled over, your citizenship was being questioned. Like, working around here was nearly impossible when you had crews of Latinos in your truck, whether they were Salvadorian, whether they were Mexican, Guatemalan, didn't matter. All of this is a straight through line, and you know, to like Klan type stuff. And you know, when you look at the Supreme Court and the decisions that they're making, like today, the whole decision on the trans issue, you know, that could be detrimental to a lot of people. I raised a trans kid, I raised a gay kid, I raised a cisgender kid, I have grandkids, like I have, you know, black nieces and nephews. All of these people are going to be impacted by these decisions. And like, where I live in a majority black household, and the conversations that we have here are really scary, you know, because I can see what all my black family members are going through, but I can never, you know, fully understand it or feel it. But when I walk out the house, I know that I have this privilege that they don't have. You know, when you know, my stepdad or my cousins or nieces and nephews are out there, and there's a black man with white looking babies, that scares the shit out of me. I've had, excuse my French, but that it scares me. Like, you know, we've had cops come up here and question, you know, my stepdad because he's out there with my grandkids who are half Mexican, half Cuban, you know, and he's a 6'1" Jamaican guy, you know, really black. And it really, it's bothersome. So yeah, all these things from the Supreme Court all the way down to our local offices, it's just, we're in a really dangerous time right now. And you know, the way the federal agencies and cops and everybody's operating so secretly and stuff like that, it's a really scary time. You know, I personally won't be participating in those protests tomorrow. I'll be at home with my family or on Saturday. I have issues with certain protests, you know, not like coordinating more long-term, you know, supportive systems. Like I use a lot of examples in LA, for example, when the Latino community was initially protesting against ICE, there was a lot of coming together, right? A lot of people were creating solutions to do grocery shopping for families that were afraid to be out in public, to give them transportation back and forth to work, you know, try to provide cover for them, you know, things like that. And with a lot of these big protests that are backed by big organizations, I'm frankly disappointed that we don't see that kind of effort on a grander scale, because when you have 15 million people out in the street, that's the perfect opportunity to create these long-term support systems for people that are being impacted directly, particularly the Black community, Latinos. Like, you know, we are living in militarized communities, and to ask a lot of people to come out in the streets when we know there's all these undercover people out there, it's pretty scary. Scary. So yeah, I think a little bit more focus needs to be put on some things like that. I don't bemoan the protests at all. I support what everybody's doing and speaking out, because it is important. It sends a message to the right people. Sometimes I just feel like it's incomplete.
Oh, your sound isn't working.
Yeah, I don't hear you.
But yeah, but I'll just chime in while you're getting your sound work to say that I agree with you, but I think it has to be not an either or, but an and.
Of course.
And you know, it's sort of that having that big thing with millions of people out in the streets all over the country. It does send a message globally. It sends a message, like, you know, and it sort of encourages people. I always worry a little bit because I'm in New York, which is a place of privilege in terms of being able to protest in the streets. But it's before every single one of these national days of action, there have been people online, you know, saying things like, oh, they're going to be infiltrators, oh, they're going to be this, oh, there's going to be that. And you know, definitely that, you know, the worst that we've had in New York is some people with YouTube channels, like trying to goad people into saying things the way that those little trolls do. And, you know, I haven't really, in looking at like on the national level, I haven't seen a lot of that. So that always sort of worries me when people are trying to like keep people from exercise, not you, but like when people sort of, you know, make it that, oh no, you shouldn't do it because it's dangerous, because that can have like an overall chilling effect.
Absolutely.
But I absolutely 100% agree with you that, you know, what we see happening right now, it is an attack on everyone who's not a straight white cisgender person, and we've got to stand up to it.
And that's why I think it's so important for people like me to participate. Like,
right.
You know,
Well, for me,
because I think there are people who are legitimately in danger if they protest.
Oh yeah, if you're undocumented, for instance, absolutely. You know,
most of our family are immigrants, you know, stuff like that. So you know, I'm in Texas too, for context. So
there you go.
It's pretty tricky.
Texas, sorry, I'm in Elgin, right outside Austin.
Oh wow, I love Elgin sausage. No, I'm in Houston. Lived in Austin for a long time. Yeah, back and forth between the two.
So did you go to Myers or Southside?
Oh, Southside. But yeah, I'm originally from Jersey, Union City, right across the river from you. So yeah, I grew up in a diverse community, live in a diverse community, and at the moment we're extremely scared.
So as a Portland resident, we've been having some action, of course, in Portland, and so
you guys have a war.
We are war ravaged, of course. I am speaking to you from my bunker. I, as a palm-colored individual, I feel that it is partly my job to like get put my body out there essentially because I have a lot of shielding. I have an inflatable costume, so I have literal shielding as well. But
Awesome. That's
I'm
cool.
thinking about ordering a inflatable deer costume and
A
then
deer?
riding on it. I am stagflation.
Stagflation. That's
Oh,
good for Halloween.
that's
I
a
have
good
one
one.
of those ones that's just the bottom half, so it's my own body, but I'm riding a unicorn.
Oh,
And I'm very excited about it. It's like extremely ostentatious and silly.
That's awesome.
I was gonna say I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I was
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
I think the protests are good in general because I think anytime that we have a fascist regime, we need people resisting. But I also think Arturo made a good point about follow up. And then I know in New Orleans we just kind of had an election, so there's a lot of like mixed feelings around. So it's like while we can come out and in the streets together, the truth of the matter is, the person who won the election only got 30% of the black vote. This is 20 years after Katrina. There's still a lot of areas that are decimated. A lot of us were just like, the black vote was split between two black candidates, right? So it's a lot that's going on because it's like, okay, even if we're in general, because we're a blue dot in a sea of red, like even if in general we're against Trump, like or against his regime, against fascism, it feels like we need more cohesion than that. Like it's no longer good enough for people to just say my standard is I'm against Trump. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because like what I said when I mentioned those statistics earlier, like black people are subjected to horrible racism in this country, and so are other marginalized groups, right? Like LGBTQ, trans people, immigrants, brown people, anybody who's really just not a white, like you said, cisgender man, and wealthy at that, right? So it's like there's all these types of layers, but ultimately, I like the idea of protests, especially if groups are organized and they go out there and they're using it as a method to recruit people into these organizations, and to get them like linked up with resources they need. But ultimately, I think what terrifies me is that it's kind of like the women with the pink hats, like they did all that and then they still supported Trump, or or the white people with the black squares in their profile, and it's like, it felt good to feel that support in that one moment, but it was a lie. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
ultimately the elections came, the people they put in office refused to support any of those policies associated with Black Lives Matter. Trump called Black Lives Matter a terrorist group long before he called Antifa a terrorist
Yeah.
group. So in a lot of ways, the way that Black people have silently been allowed to be harmed has opened the door for full-blown authoritarianism, which is what civil rights leaders warned would happen in the 60s. So now is the time for, if people want to go out there, I love it. I love the frog. I love making fun of how ridiculous their authoritarianism is. And I think us just people being happy, people being together and everything, it does challenge that. But I also feel like it almost distracts from what I would consider more like real protest, like real frustration bubbling
Mhm.
over. And that's what like a real protest is. And also I kind of find it weird that they're like, they want you to register, if that makes any sense. And I hate the fact that registering is always tied to them asking for money, because it almost makes you feel ick. It makes you like, if it didn't have money, if it was just like, hey, what's up? Let's get to know each other. Let's do things together. I think it would be a little different. And I just say that as somebody who has a group where we help each other and we hang out and we don't charge people for things. We're just like, let's use our unity, like be our strength, that sort of thing. It feels very orchestrated, almost like it's used to like get people. Then when they go back to work on Monday, they're gonna feel like I did something. I was there. I was part of the resistance. But it's like, but were you? You know what I mean? Like, were you? Because a lot of bad things are happening to Black people, to even indigenous people, who were here even before white people, continue to endure discrimination. And it's done on a personal level, it's done on an institutional level. So I feel like earlier y'all were talking about there needing to be a counter movement. And I really believe that. I believe we have to really embrace the fact that we're going to need a civil rights movement. And if the Democrats are not living up to what they're supposed to, if they're not supporting the LGBTQ community, if they're not, I remember when Democrats said they supported a pathway to citizenship. I never hear that. I never hear that anymore from them. So I'm just saying, like, I do think that we should use the midterms as an opportunity to try to refine and realign where we want to be a couple of years from now, because we are in a bad shape. So it's like I do want people to go out there. I hope it is, because there's projections that indicate it could be one of the biggest protest movements, in United States history. So I do think anybody who goes out there is going to be part of something. I would just encourage anyone to go out there to let that not be all you do. Just like when we go vote, that shouldn't be all we do. Really take a look at your community and consider donating some of your time as we go into the holidays. Consider donating some things to people in need, because a lot is happening. And over 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs since Trump started implementing these anti-DEI policies and hurting federal workers. Because as he was talking about earlier, Black workers are disproportionately represented amongst federal workers, because those jobs have anti-discriminatory statutes that make it easier for them to go in there and thrive, right? So that means they're disproportionately hit whenever federal jobs are cut. And we're during a period right now where money is paused. Like, I know some people who are impacted that are like, oh my God, if we don't get reimbursed for the time that we didn't get the money, I might have to lose my house. That sort of discussions are happening around America. So I just hope that people turn the no kings. It's like, first of all, it kind of feels like we already have a king. So it kind of feels like, like we're chasing a ball. Like, no, the fact of the matter is there's a 2028 hat on his desk. And I saw Democrats in the office that were, in my opinion, a little complicit in that by even agreeing to speak with him with such things on, because it's like, are we going to let this go down or not? We're talking about no kings. Well, what is it going to take on the part of everyday citizens in order to actually live by that? If we really don't want to live under a king, what are we willing to do? And that scares me, that it feels like all people are willing to do is just go out and kind of feel good about themselves. Well, I live in New Orleans. We parade all the time. But there's a big difference between us going out and partying and us going to City Hall and saying, hey, and every once in a while we're able to successfully make change. Like in this election, the one positive thing we did is we added a part of our city's constitution that you can't discriminate against someone based off of their criminal record in terms of finding housing. So it's like, even though we might not have got everything we want, we made a difference, And I just hope that people kind of take their activism beyond that fun day, But I do hope y'all turn up, and I do hope y'all are safe. And I do hope a lot of people wear masks, because I do feel like facial recognition software now, it's not like back in the day. And you don't want to be in some type of court. Like, what if we lose the next upcoming, what if we lose in the midterms and the Democrats lose again in the next presidential election? What happens to you then when they have that information and they're scanning faces and doing this and that and other? So I think go out there with your frog costume. Go out there with costumes and stuff. And like, if you're going to disrupt, then be a disruptor, and do it for the right reason.
I love what you're saying, that like, I think there is both sides to it, right? Like and it's not just, you're going out to protest. You go out and you meet with other people. Like, there's something, if you're always at home, always alone, and always just yelling on the internet and doom scrolling, you can feel jaded, you can feel hopeless, you can feel despair. But you go out there and there's tens of thousands of people that are with you. It's empowering and it's like motivating, right? But then what do you do with that motivation? Do you go home and eat potato chips and watch football on Sunday? Or do you go home and say, okay, what do I do next? Get involved, get involved in the primaries, get involved in things that are going to actually move the Democratic Party to be the party you want it to be. And Caitlin, you've been trying to get in here.
I've been like, sorry. I just don't want to talk over anybody. So the thing about the No Kings protest, like the really strong thing about it is the numbers, because when you have an aspiring fascist or a fascist in the office, one thing you want to show is the people do not support you. And so that is something that No Kings does so well. When people are going there, I want you to protect your face, protect your identity, protect your body. That means masking for coronavirus reasons. That means masking for, not getting, all those devices aimed at you reasons. Also, look around you, because there will be representatives of organizations that you can approach, sign up with, or write down who they are and talk to them later. Like, I met these wonderful people from the Portland Immigration Rights Coalition, who like right while I was standing next to them, I like pulled up their PayPal and was like, let's do this, right? And I asked them, like, what do you need? They need hand warmers. Okay, I'm going down there with hand warmers in the next day or two. What do you need? And so, like, just linking up with people, finding out what they need and providing it is such a helpful thing. Oh, a next step for you.
And the one thing I want to add about about all of these, because it's not just No Kings Rights, No Kings, it's 50501, it's hands off. It's like there have been multiple large national calls of action, and the one thing that I will say is that the whole signing up and registering and stuff and getting your email address. The truth is, all those organizations that have collected all those email addresses, combine those resources and start start putting out calls for collaborations on messaging and putting the word out in social media campaigns. That can actually do a lot of good, because that's another, there's the ABC thing, always be communicating, and the right, as I've said before, is incredibly good and effective and organized around coordinated campaigns of messaging, and all these email databases and stuff. They could be used for that kind of messaging, but B, also resource gathering for exactly the things that we've been talking about in terms of community support, pushing the Democrats to actually live by the values that the Democratic Party supposedly has. There's a lot of good things, but it's going to have to come from the people that participate to sort of make these demands of these shadowy people at the top of these organizations that are making these calls for these national days of action. It's like we're going to have to require more of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think what you were saying a second ago. What's your real name? Machine Pun, Kelly? Is it Kelly?
Yeah, my real name is Kelly. My name is actually Kelly.
So yeah, what you were saying about when you show up to a protest, because did it a lot during the BLM protest. It's that sense of community, right? You get that feeling of you're around other people. You're not it's the exact polar opposite of what you were saying about sitting at home, right? You're not. You have support. You're not isolated. You can, and that's something we lack in this country, right? Is a sense of community. It's one of the things like you'll see in Latin America and stuff is a really big, broad sense of community. You see it in the Black community here in the U.S. And I think like in our neighborhood, as diverse as it is, the only people that ever talk to each other are the non-white people. The Indian family down the street, they come hang out. Most of our white neighbors are in and out, come home, leave. They don't wave, they don't say hi, they don't anything. They just ignore. They won't even make eye contact. And I think that that's a big issue that it really shows itself in a community like ours. And for us, it's like it's a white people problem. That's how we see it around here, because we're hanging out with each other in front yards and stuff, and white guy with a dog comes walking by, won't even look at us, like we're not even there. And we always just kind of laugh about it. We're like, whatever, we're still over here doing our thing. And
you're scary. That's the problem.
Right. Yeah, right. You try
not, and whatnot.
Right. You try not to let it bother you, but it does. After a while, it just kind of wears on you. And I'm kind of an ass about it. I wave at everybody on purpose. I see white people drive by. I'm like, hey, and they'll just look at you. And the next time they come by, they know they'll wave. And at least you'll get that out of them. But it's because you put the pressure on. Otherwise, they would just ignore us. So, yeah, I think the protests, especially something as big as No Kings, is going to help create a big sense of community among a diverse contingent of people, because there are a lot of Latinos like me who were born here who aren't as afraid of being taken into custody by ICE, who are going to be out there making noise for their families and stuff. You're going to see a lot of Black people out there, standing up for their communities too. And I think those are important connections to be made in this country, so we can develop a more overall, general sense of community, because everything's different in this country. The East Coast isn't like the West Coast. The Midwest isn't like the South. There's no one set culture, one set rules, one set anything in this country. And I think these are great opportunities to build those kinds of relationships. They're important.
It's interesting because my experience is like the opposite of yours, because I'm because I look like,
right. Right.
I look like I could be wearing a MAGA hat, right? Like,
Right.
and so people will be MAGAs will be comfortable just coming up and talking their racist crap to me, and like I'll be just take my pet to the vet and had people just sit down next to me and start ranting their stupid stuff, and then they find out that no, you talked to the wrong gentleman, sir. Allison.
I was gonna say, leading up to the last election, they had this organization, Win with Black Women, and they were like, they got the financial ball rolling in terms of getting fundraising for leading up to Kamala Harris's election, and that was like a cool conversation with Black women from all over the country. But the cool thing that they did though afterwards is they've kept in touch and they've continued to have those meetings, and so I would like to see the people in charge of the No Kings kind of like follow up. Like, for example, we know that we don't know which cities, right? But we don't know if Trump's little Gestapo is going to try to cause harm to some people. Let's say that most people, let's say 99% of people are fine, but let's say a couple people get hurt. Well, the organizers, are they gonna like send everyone who signed up an article following up with that, or is it just like come out for the protest and then it's kind of like, and that's the only thing is if they're like some kind of leaders of some type of resistance, then I just want to see more. I want to see more from them. I want to see more follow up, and other white fundraisers did the same thing. Like they did Win with Black Men. They did the white women did it. Even white men did it. Everyone ended up doing it, but I don't know if those other groups kind of stayed together. I can tell you that Win with Black Women, they still have kept in contact, and we all still email each other, and we still meet up on Zoom and stuff like that. So I don't know. I would be curious if there was going to be something like that from the organizers, because if you have this much power to get all these people out their house, then it's like, give us a list of organizations, give us something, some type of follow-up, because it kind of gets everybody excited, and then it's like you're looking around and you don't know when the next one's going to be, or if there's ever going to be another one or anything like that.
We need to make this the start, not the finish. Like
right.
So here's a question. If let's say I be saying like you could make something happen that would actually affect real change, what would it be? Like, let's get everybody's answer. We'll start with Jay. I'm sorry you don't have, unless somebody else is like got something coming to mind right away. Like, what is a solution that you would do?
I mean, for me, the solution is for all of us who are under threat to unsilo. We have to like stop keeping to our little groups. It's important to maintain the cohesion of our different communities and our different sort of affiliations, but we have to unsilo, and we have to continue the process of education and learning about each other so that we can build that broader community. I think one of the things that was really powerful about the first resistance, the resistance to Trump 1.0, is that that's exactly how it basically was formed. It was sort of, for once, all of these different constituencies had a common enemy. And so you had disability justice folks, and you had LGBTQ folks, and you had Black folks, and you had brown folks, and you had pro-choice folks, and you had immigration folks, all sort of coming together and learning about the different, all the different struggles, environmentalists, all of it, and informing themselves, and then coming out as one. And I think that's it. And it was that work that was done during Trump 1.0 that it has enabled these huge mass movements to occur during Trump 2.0, because all of that infrastructure was there and didn't disappear during the 4 Biden years, mostly because of what a disappointment Biden was. And so I think now is the time to take it to that next level and use all of that interconnectivity to start really sort of creating some a really strong agenda that shows respect and that honors everybody under this tent and really pushes a radical agenda onto the Democratic Party. So that's my hope.
Project 2028.
Project 2020 or 2029, exactly
Oh yeah,
that.
2029, right? That would be when they actually get into the office. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd like to issue everybody a challenge that sees this, based on what you just said. You know, at the parade, or at the, I keep wanting to call it a parade because I feel like it's
Come
not.
on.
I mean, it kind of is. Yeah.
But at the protest, introduce yourself to somebody different than you.
Yes.
Force yourself out of your silo. If you're a black person, talk to a white person. If you're a white person, talk to a black person. Like, talk to different people and like enter somebody else's experience for just 5 minutes. It will change your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, I want to just to echo some of what Jay was saying, and Allison will probably back me up on this because we've had this discussion a lot, and it's coalition building.
Yeah.
You know, we often, Allison and I often talk about it across like the Black community and the Latino communities lines, right? The immigration community. But really, we should be building coalitions across all of these communities, every marginalized community. And I think that if you really build strong enough coalitions and set yourself apart enough, like politically from Republicans and the centrist Democrats who seem more like Republican these days, that's when we'll start getting people who don't vote to vote. You know, there are a lot of people that don't vote in every election, and I understand that a majority of them can't because they have to work, they have kids at home, single parents, things like that. But there are a lot of people that just sit on the couch because they can't be bothered, because they see both parties as the same. They think their vote's not going to matter. If you set yourself apart enough from that, there are 90 million votes out there that didn't vote in the last election that could easily be used to start swinging elections. So instead of switching and trying to appease to the hate mongers and the bigots and trying to meet them in the middle, we should be building coalitions and showing these 90 million people, like, look, there is change that's possible, and we're here to bring it. You know, and until we have something like that kind of an overall message, I think we're going to end up with similar situations like the last few elections where, you know, they're just really tight.
Well, I would argue too, we also need values-based coalitions.
Yeah.
Because see, the problem is a lot of times Democrats are trying to just get someone to agree to be in that tent. And then when they get into office, we can't get them to pass anything because ultimately we made the fatal error of building with people who we didn't share values with. Perfect example would be Manchin, Cinema, federal, all of those. So essentially, it's like we have to make sure that we're actually on the same page. We can't put coalition building before, wanting to make sure we have the same values. Because, I was in a space a couple of days ago, and it was a Black MAGA came in, and it wasn't my space. I normally just don't, right? But when they were talking, I'm like, they wanted to act like they were so different. And ultimately, they were against women, they were against gay people, they were against all these things. And I said, so ultimately, you're talking about power, and what we want the power to do is very different. So you're not actually in our coalition. You get what I'm saying? So that's important. I feel like it's understanding, do we have those core values to where when one of us gets in power, it's actually going to reflect what we want. Yeah, it feels good to get along with others, but ultimately, as a Black person, I'm interested in voting people in who believe in restorative justice for Black people, for other marginalized groups, no matter how it is they're marginalized. I do believe in restorative justice is necessary. And I think that's the one thing the civil rights was missing, because white people started to kind of feel like we've done enough when really you haven't. It's why white people have 10 times the wealth. I mean, if you fixed it, then we wouldn't be in this mess. If you don't like talking about race, then join us and become anti-racist, and let's get rid of this ideology's hold on our lives. But yeah, I'm hoping people get together. I'm hoping people have a good time. And I hope people make the connections like you guys are talking about that have been made in the past. I just want the leaders, if you're that powerful, because I don't have millions of followers. If I had enough pull to be able to press an email and say, hey, everyone come out on this Saturday, and all these different things, if I had that much pull, then it does get to the point where now I feel like you have responsibility to say a little more. Like, what are we supposed to be doing from here? Because, of course, we're going to continue to work with the organizations in our community, that's the ones of us who already have. But are there any particular stomping orders, right? Like, for example, MAGA got rid of a lot of Black history books because they encouraged their people to join school board offices to run for those offices. Once they got those seats, they used that power because once again, they made sure they were aligned with values before moving forward. That's why when their judges got in, they took away our rights because once again, before they started talking power and unity, they started talking about what they wanted to accomplish together. So I want to I like the idea of coalitions, but I want to ask before I get in any coalition with anyone, what do you believe? Because my people believe in reparations. Yeah. Are you in tune with that? And then let's build on it. Now tell me about what your people need. Tell me about what are the needs in your community, and let's see if I'm agreed with that. You know, let's have genuine connection and not just kind of get together and just whoa and then just nothing. You know,
I hate Trump. Yay! Like
he is fun to hate. He is fun to hate though.
Yeah, easy to hate. Don't let anybody shame you about having purity tests, right? Because what are purity tests? Right. They are standards. Right. If you don't have standards for the people that you're going to allow to act on your behalf, then like, what are you even doing, right? You do actually have to have them.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'd also add, this is the time to do this. So many people wait until after the primaries to start complaining about who the candidates are. Right. Get involved now.
Now is the time to learn.
Because how else are you supposed to get someone in the primaries you like?
That's true.
Exactly.
Like we need people to stand up and you know. I'm really pissed off about what the Democratic Party did to David Hogg, because we need to encourage real primaries so that people can feel like there is a real alternative.
Well, and we need to encourage young people.
Primaries. I like watching all the people debate.
Yeah. Well, we need to encourage young people who have bold ideas to not be afraid to express them. And like, David Hogg, what's he now, 25? Less than that, actually, I think. And is fearless, and the Democratic Party just basically slapped him down. And so the thing is, though, and that's what I'm saying about all of these sort of
think about
some people were telling me if I didn't support Gavin Newsom, we were going to have fascism.
Right.
Sorry. Like, think of David Hogg versus Charlie Kirk. It's just such a contrast.
Right. Night and day.
Parties treat them.
Right. One of them is spreading hate and gets named a hero. The other one is just trying to encourage more democratic debate and is shunned by the party. I think that the centrist Democrats, they have to stop pretending like they know best. Because honestly, to me, they're the weakest link, because y'all are the ones where you get in power and you don't want to do anything, and you not doing anything makes it harder for activists on the ground like us to go and encourage people to vote. Because then when you start saying, well, why should I be voting? You're just like, yikes. You guys are not giving us much to go off. You have to make it easier on us. It's just not the time. It's not the time for centrists. It's really not. And I don't understand how they don't see that. Even if you are a centrist, you can't possibly think that centrism is going to save America from Trump.
But what centrism does,
centrist, because it's like
centrism attracts money. Centrism attracts money. That's why centrism keeps winning the day, because centrism attracts money, and the money wants to keep that tension in the center right, because that's better for corporate interests and the investor class and the people that sit on the boards of every major media organization in the country. And and our challenge is to make people power stronger than that dollar power.
We have to make it easier for them to participate, because the working people, they don't have as much time to kind of digest all this. They need simple information, easily accessible. Let's help them as much as we can to vote and make them feel like it matters. They vote.
And that's actually the whole point of my entire social media thing, is I try to break things down and digest things and make them easier to digest, because not everybody has time to do that, and, not everybody can understand why there's problems in the Middle East, or what's going on with the economy, or the actual impact that mass deportations are going to have on the economy, or why we're right now in a recession that's being covered up by the AI boom. Like, there's these things, they're complicated. You can't just sit down for 5 minutes and figure it out. And people are exhausted when they come home. They're soccer moms and soccer dads that take their kids to, soccer practice after they drive an hour and a half to work and an hour and a half back and work 8 hours in between. And by the time they're finally eating dinner and put the kids to bed and everything like that, it's like 9 o'clock and all they want to do is sit down and watch some brainless TV show like CSI. Like I mean, that's why those, Chicago TV shows and all that they're just like, you don't even really need to think about them. You can just completely turn your brain off. And it's like they need that to just get to sleep at night because they're so wound up from the day. So we need, and it's like Fox News, like that's rage entertainment. Like that's all it is. And it's like, so they watch that to turn their brain off. And they just get told.
I caught my grandma when she was still alive. I caught her watching Fox News before, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what's going on in here? Like, I feel like it's almost like they like something about the way they present the information. It has, and I think that they might. I don't know, right? Because I haven't studied it too much, but it does seem like they've gotten more far right. Like there was a time when they were all kind of what and what, and then they've always leaned right, but I definitely feel like they've become like far right.
They're just propaganda now. That's all they are.
Yeah.
Right, for the Trump administration.
Yeah. Well, for really, it's not just for the Trump administration. It's for the entire Project 2025 agenda, for the entire MAGA movement, for the billionaire class, like all of it. Like that's what they're doing. And occasionally, one of their anchors will like go off script, and then you'll see like a very, very quick correction, or they'll lose their job. And it's funny how you see the ones that have left. Like suddenly Tucker Carlson is pushing back against Israel. Now, mind you, Tucker Carlson will never be a hero of mine, but like outside of that corporate structure, sort of determining everything that he does and every word that he says, like some free thought actually managed to seep its way into that like horrible racist brain of his. Even with, as horrible as he was, Charlie Kirk, started doing the same thing, started like pushing back a little bit too, and that might be why he died. But we don't know. But
I've agreed with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Rand Paul in the last couple of months.
Right?
Like, what is wrong with the world?
I just ignore them because I feel like they want to because this is what a troll does. A troll, right when you start to get fed up and you're about to cut them off and you tell yourself, I'm done, there's nothing you can say, they say something reasonable. I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe that's a way to kind of get your ear back and be like, come back in, I'm normal, listen to me. And then but you know what's dangerous about it, because even though we have the sense to know that a clock could be, even a broken clock could be right twice a day, a lot of people really do think, oh, maybe I should listen to, like a couple of people do. In other words, every time they do that, they're able to get a few more people that actually do stay when everyone else is gone. With the joke, they stay, and then they're able to feed them this propaganda. So every time they behave, I just ignore it. I'm like, you know what, you're behaving for 5 minutes, but overall, there's a pattern of behavior with you. And unless you're interested in change, just like Candace Owens, every once in a while she says the right thing, but ultimately, it's like I look at the pattern of behavior. Like we have other people that have been consistently right on this. We don't have to be desperate. And then also it plays with this idea that they can be converted, and I'm not convinced a lot of them.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going to be like, but I think there is a kind of like with Rand Paul, he's always been against government overreach, and he's seeing government overreach and he's speaking out against that. Marjorie Taylor Greene got elected on QAnon, and she's still like anti-pedophile, and so it's like on this one thing with Epstein, she's being consistent with herself. It's not like they're changing their voice, but at least they have like enough, and I hate to use this word with either one of them, but at least enough intellectual integrity to stay consistent with themselves, as opposed to like Mike Johnson or somebody that just whatever, however
Yeah.
many times Donald Trump pooped his pants that day, he's going to reflect soon. It's like,
Release the
you're not-
Epstein files.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like this. I was talking about this with my friend Walter Reen on Substack, and I told him, I said, at this point, we have to make up our own decisions. A lot of people are waiting for the files. At this point, whatever files we've seen have been tainted by the process that has withheld them. So at this point, we have to, as adults, make our decisions. And I've already made my decision. There's been enough accusations against him. We know that he raped Jean Carroll. We know that there were younger girls who, even before all this Epstein stuff came out, had independently
Katie Johnson,
accused him of harming them. And so, to me, if multiple women and girls are saying you did it, then that's enough for me. That Epstein files, like, it's funny when we bring it up, but like, no. Look at what I grew up in, a society where when I was a kid and Bill Clinton was president, they dragged him through the mud for getting head. And this guy can rape women. Consensual head. That's the most important part about it, the consensual head. And this guy can have unconsensual sex, can talk about grabbing girls by their stuff, and we have valid, like reliable allegations of pedophilia. And the Republicans don't care, so they can save all this moral, like crazy stuff. Like they say they're so religious, but you allow children to be hurt. You're not a good adult. Like, everyone knows that you're not a good adult if a kid can't look to you and say, I can trust that adult to help me and stand against anybody who's going to harm me. And we have a president. I know that can't make kids feel safe, especially in else, where they're getting shot and getting harmed in all these different ways.
If nothing else, Trump has removed family values from the discourse. They don't talk about family values anymore. They can't talk about family values anymore. They've lost that ability. They can't. And they don't, because they see it too. Like, they see it too, that like, no, I guess we really can't say we're all about family values.
We're some now. That's what they're thinking, right?
It's like, is there even anybody that's like Stephen Miller's wife is out there bumping uglies with Elon Musk, and and it's like, when he was like getting shoved into lockers when he was in junior high, was he like daydreaming about the day he would be cucked by the richest man in the world? It's like,
I know, because Elon Musk, not only is he, weird in all like the political ways, but just, oh my God, look at him. I mean, actually, the whole thing is embarrassing. The whole thing from top to bottom.
He is like trying to be a real boy, like that.
And he pretty much pays for girls, like, to have different kids with him. And the whole thing is creepy. It's creepy to me. And he thinks it's all going to them being white supremacists and them thinking, I need to spread my seed far and wide. Like, I hope those women take those kids and raise them the way that they want to raise them. And make sure you get your paperwork, make sure you get everything signed to where you get that money, because I don't understand why else anybody would put themselves through this. Like, he's not trying to have real families with these kids. Money can't substitute having a parent there. You know what I mean? He just throws money at the problem. And he's not nice to his kid doesn't he have a kid that's trans or something like that he doesn't really pay much attention to her or them.
I think that might be one of the things that pushed him over the edge, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no, I mean, I think that his long-term goal, which is the long-term goal of a lot of people that immigrated to North America after the fall of the apartheid government, was to sort of like find a place where they can be as racist as they want to be and have economic power. And that's what Elon Musk's family did. That's what the guy who's actually Asian, but like the guy who owns the Los Angeles Times. That's what Peter Thiel was from. It was like Southwest Africa, but now I can't remember what the country is called now. But like it's all this sort of same thing as colonial. As the colonizer culture collapsed in Africa, they looked across the water and they say, "Hey, America's pretty racist. America's pretty racist. I think we might be able to make a go of it." I mean, Hitler got got a lot of his ideas from Jim Crow, from looking at like Jim Crow and the post-Reconstruction South. So it's like America has been this font of ideas around and techniques for imposing white supremacy for quite some time. And we've had a culture that just sort of it tries to ignore that and tries to elide that and tries to like shove that underneath the rug, which is what then enabled something like this sort of MAGA surge, this Project 2025 surge to happen in the first place. It's like I'm a Gen Xer, right? I grew up in the 70s, and there was a constant cultural anti-racist thing that was happening. It was happening in movies, it was happening on television, it was happening on the news, it was happening on news magazines, it was happening in books, it was happening everywhere. Like there was an agreement that we as a culture were trying to squash racism, particularly specifically racism and anti-blackness. It was a decided upon trajectory that we launched on, and then Reagan got elected. Mm-hmm. And the Heritage Foundation got founded right at that same time, and there's been a constant chipping away at all of that work that was done, and now we're here.
Right. So Jay, I think you will enjoy this. I just got a black cat, like total void cat, and we've always named all our pets after bears, and so we were trying to think of a name for our black cat. And when I was back in the 70s, I was a big fan of Starsky and Hutch. So to that character. So when she was like blaxploitation, for those that don't know, he was a blaxploitation character, and he was kind of groundbreaking in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of like whether blaxploitation was good or bad but anyway, it was a great character. Great,
Huggy Bear was great. We loved Huggy Bear. Antonio Fargas.
A lot of good movies came out of the blaxploitation era.
Hell yeah.
Man, I watched them nonstop when I was a kid. And now as an adult, my favorite ones are the ones where they went to the Philippines and made them there. And like, those are just so off the wall, dude. It's so funny. They're funny. I mean, they're great movies though. I mean, you had some great actors came out of those too. So, yeah, that was a good time. From what I remember, I was pretty young during that time. I was born in 74. So yeah, I mean, late 70s, early 80s was kind of a pretty cool time to be a kid. We roamed like all Gen Xers. We roamed the streets.
We were wild.
We were
untethered. Water from the hose. I heard y'all drank water from the hose.
We drank water from the hose. We did it all, man.
You went in the house and your parents kicked you back out.
That's
just how it was.
My dad used to call us. He's like, because we get a key, he said, y'all are latchkey kids.
Yeah,
we used to until the street lights come on. That's when you got to go home. No matter what.
That was it. That was exactly it. That was us. It's like they didn't want to see us. Nope. On a Saturday, especially, no, you get out of here, go somewhere. They just sign us up for whatever they could sign us up for just to keep us out of the house on the weekend.
You can't come in and out. They're going to say you letting all my air conditioning out.
Yes.
The crazy time.
It was. But it made us interesting.
It did.
Yeah, I always say growing up, you know you're Gen X by how many times you nearly died and never told your parents about it.
Yes.
Right.
Y'all are even rougher than I'm a millennial. Y'all are even rougher and tougher than us. Like y'all are the ones.
No, we went to school in the morning and maybe saw our parents at dinner time. Like
maybe
that was they called us latchkey kids for a reason. Like we raised ourselves. We BB gun fights and like we were nuts. We were insane. It's amazing I am still alive.
We went roaming around in forests by ourselves or with our little packs of friends. Like
there's a reason
no one knew where we were.
Y'all are like the kids on Stranger Things.
Yes, exactly.
Y'all were.
No one knew where we were, what we were doing, had no clue. As long as we didn't have any
GPS on them kids.
Yeah, exactly. It's like as long as we didn't have any broken bones or cuts or or like gash wounds, that were like bleeding profusely when we came home, everything was cool and nobody needed to know anything. It was great.
But I feel like that it's like, but that's something I feel like is really amazing because ultimately now we have like a society where I don't know if these kids do they know how to search something in the library without internet? Do they know how to figure
It's a
things out?
problem.
Do they
It's a-
know what a library is? Let's start
Yeah.
there. Like, that's the other thing that's so funny about all these, stuff about these books in the libraries. It's like,
The kids ain't in there anyway.
They
do you
would
think
know a
that
Dewey
people are reading,
Decimal from a
like,
Slurpee.
paper, like analog books anymore? Or, like,
Yeah. Well, no,
Or
I-
like, I had this one kid ask me about. They said, "Why would you need an a set?" Like I was showing her an old encyclopedia set, and she was like, "Why would you do this? Why would you?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Back in the day, this was considered nice. People wanted one of these in their houses. You could go and look up." She's like, "You can look. I can look up anything now." And I said, "Well, look, we didn't have that. I didn't.
Right.
I got my first, camera phone like when I was about to leave high school.
Mhm.
That was a new thing, and it certainly wasn't like a good quality. Everyone wasn't doing it.
Mhm.
We had our little Black Planet page, our little MySpace page, the Mahente. Arturo, you probably know about the Mahente page.
Yeah.
Everybody would be on there, but it was a lot less organized. It was a lot less attached to your real identity. It was more just like people having fun and being weird, I guess. But
Yeah.
now that we're adults, it's something completely different. It's something I don't think any of us could have really known that it would turn out this way. And it's like it's its own world.
I was in a conversation on Facebook the other day where somebody was asking, like, did people really used to know people's phone numbers? Because that's totally realistic.
I still know like 3 or 4 of them.
See, when I grew up, I knew everybody's phone number. Like, it's like you just had it in your head because, that was it. Everybody had a landline, and I knew my mom's phone number. I knew her boyfriend's phone number. I knew my work's phone number. I knew all my friends' phone numbers that didn't live right around me because I never had to call them. I just
money for a payphone, money for the payphone,
money for the payphone.
And
you remember telling people
dial.
Here's 10 cents, call somebody who cares. Here's 10 cents, call somebody who cares. I used to love that. That was my favorite one.
Or do y'all remember trying to call people collect to see which of your friends or family members would answer? You're like, oh, and you try to say your message really quick as they record your name. You're like, I'm at the movie theater. Hurry up and come on in the movie theater.
I remember that.
I'm ready to be picked up now.
Or do y'all remember limited minutes on your phone?
Yes.
Remember on the weekend it used to be free, but you used to only have like 500 minutes a month. And also internet. Remember when internet was limited like that too at one point, and then the dial-up,
Oh, the dial-up. Oh God, remember AOL?
Yeah.
It takes so long. Like
you have mail, like that. Nobody would get that anymore.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
What was the movie? You've Got Mail.
You've Got Mail. Yeah.
You got mail.
But no, when I did real estate for about 10 years. And I dealt with a lot of students who were getting apartments off campus here in New York because New York's, especially Columbia, had no on campus housing, and so everybody had to get off campus housing. And I would talk to these kids, like undergrads and graduate students, and I just remember this was in the early 2000s or mid to late 2000s. And I just remember being shocked and stunned at what I saw as them being completely unprepared for life. Their parents in control of everything in their lives. And when I left home at 18 to go to NYU, I did that was it. I would go home for holidays. My mom didn't know what I was doing in New York City. And these young people had, even grad students, their parents were still deeply involved in every decision-making process that they made. And we're still having, still hadn't learned how to cook yet, still hadn't learned how to do laundry yet. I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned.
That's great.
And let's not get started on the AI essays. That's got me wanting to kind of hesitant to want to be a teacher, because even though I graduated, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I think my thing would be write me an essay in class and I won't take as much points off for grammar and all that. But I want to know that you can think, because
Yeah.
I'm terrified, because they had some kids that were bragging about, I graduated, AI wrote everything for me, and I'm like, well, now I'm
Mhm.
scared. Now you
Mhm.
don't have the skills you claim that
Yeah.
you have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's bad.
That's
it's one
not
thing
gonna do you
using
well on the
technology
job.
as support, you know.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting up near the end of my time here. But I always want to give everybody a chance to pitch anything that they want, like a book or website or just your Twitter handle or whatever. So I'm noticing you have a Rise and Resist T-shirt on, Shay. Is that something you want to talk about?
Oh,
What is
yeah.
Rise and Resist?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm a founding member of Rise and Resist, which is an active organization in New York, riseandresist.org. I'll also tell folks that I just started with a brand new LGBTQ newspaper called LGBTQ Community News. We just had our first issue just came out, and I'm gonna have I have a regular column in that. So that's LGBTQ Community News.nyc. So check that out. And you might check out my podcast, Girl Stop, which is on all the podcast platforms. That's GURLSTOP.
Nice.
So Allison, are you there?
I think
Oh.
she froze.
She
Yeah.
froze. So Arturo?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty simple. I use the same handle on all my social media. Been doing a lot of stuff with my newsletter lately. Just, follow me wherever. I'm usually chasing down people in the government and harassing them about things and, reporting on whatever's in the news. Here lately, there's been a lot of Venezuela, a lot of immigration. Both of those are pretty important to me, but yeah, I talk to a lot of lawmakers and stuff, so in my work. So yeah, just at Extreme Arturo. I'm everywhere.
So Allison, welcome back.
Oh yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. I've been moving all around. Arturo knows my struggles.
Yeah.
But
It looks like the sun is not cooperating you. Why won't it just
no,
stay where
it
it's
is not.
supposed
It's
to be?
beating me down. Like, at first I wanted to be by the trees, but then it was too far away from my internet box, so then I had to come over here, and the sun is just crazy. And they're doing construction inside to where I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like I have no office right now. So yeah, so basically, if you guys want to keep up with me, you can just Google me. I've written over 1,000 essays on race, women, history. I work for myself. I'm a freelance writer. I've been really enjoying the freedom that comes with that. But I am amping up to publish my first book. You can follow me on Twitter, where I publish the most. You can email me at allifromnola@gmail.com to get like a quicker response, because I tend to think somebody's serious if they approach me on there. And I'm really enjoyed getting to see you guys. I've seen Arturo a million times, but seeing y'all, that was a really incredible experience. So I'm just happy that I got to talk to you guys today. That was really the highlight of my day, actually.
It's been great having all of you on. So I love that when we have these panels, people can see that left is not a monolith. It's
Right.
but we need to have more discussions, I think. And one of the things that I really hope people can take home from this is the value in coalition building and just like really
Right.
talking to each other and working towards solutions. Like, we absolutely need to resist fascism, but we also need to build something better. And I do think that's something the Democrats need to start working towards. What is the alternative?
Exactly. So Kelly, can I just say, I should have said it, just my social media, it's just my name, JAYWWALKER on all the different platforms, so you can find me easily.
And if anybody has any links or anything, your Twitter handles or whatever, if you want to send those to me, you've all got my email. Just send that whatever you want to me, and I'll add it into the descriptions column in the YouTube link and in my Substack.
Awesome.
People can get in touch with you. All right. I really appreciate you coming on. I thought this was a great conversation, and I loved our little segue. Next, but thanks for coming on. Have a great day.
Great meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you, man. Bye.
Bye.